Have you ever wondered why the smallest gesture can suddenly change everything? How a glance, a pause, or the tilt of your head can make a man forget his logic and remember only his longing? Most people believe attraction lives in beauty, but the truth is far more dangerous. It lives in energy, in the archetypal language of the feminine unconscious. What you think pushes him away may, in fact, be what draws him closer. Carl Jung believed that within every woman lives a symphony of archetypes, the lover, the queen, the huntress, the sage, and when one awakens, she doesn't speak with words. She moves, breathes, and looks in ways that reach into the male psyche, bypassing the mind entirely. In every encounter between the feminine and the masculine, there is a silent negotiation happening beneath the surface. He may not understand why his pulse quickens when she brushes her hair aside or lowers her gaze for half a heartbeat too long. He only feels the pull, the gravitational field of her essence, shaped by centuries of evolution and myth. Jung called it the anima, the image of woman that lives in a man's unconscious, and it is her gestures, her subtle, forbidden archetypal signals, that call it forth. When she moves from instinct rather than performance, something ancient stirs in him. It's not the physical act that matters, it's the symbolism behind it. A woman leaning closer may echo the lover archetype's promise of surrender, a deliberate stillness may awaken the queen's command of space. But these gestures aren't about seduction. They are about alignment, about the body becoming the voice of the soul. The most magnetic women are not those who seek to impress, but those who have reconciled their shadow. They have made peace with the parts of themselves they were taught to hide, the hunger, the defiance, the tenderness too raw to show. Each gesture becomes a confession of inner integration. The way her fingers rest on a glass, the rhythm of her breath in a moment of silence, these are not accidents. They are echoes of her unconscious speaking to his. He sees her before he understands her. His logical mind scrambles for reason, but the archaic masculine within him, the warrior, the seeker, recognizes something sacred. The polarity between them is not about dominance but reflection. She mirrors the part of him he has forgotten, the anima he has suppressed in his quest for control. And that is why he craves her. Not because she is mysterious, but because she mirrors his own mystery back to him. Her gestures awaken his forgotten softness, her quiet confidence calls his chaos to order. The forbidden quality of these archetypal gestures lies in their authenticity. They are forbidden not because they are wrong, but because the modern world has taught women to censor them. To shrink, to filter, to smile safely. Yet when she moves from her unconscious, unfiltered, untamed, she reclaims her natural power. This is not manipulation, it is memory. A remembrance of the language of instinct. The kind of presence that makes a man's thoughts scatter like birds startled into flight. And you, if you have ever wondered why some women seem to command attention without speaking, why men orbit around their energy without knowing why, it is because they embody this living myth. Their gestures are poetry in motion, bridging the distance between the seen and the unseen. They don't seek validation because they already possess vibration. Their body becomes a message, I am whole, I am here, I am unashamed. And in that wholeness lies the spark that makes his mind spin with craving, not for her body alone, but for the reflection of his own soul within hers. Every gesture begins long before it is seen. It is born in the silence between thought and instinct, in that sacred space where a woman's unconscious decides what truth to reveal. Her gestures are not planned, they rise from the undercurrent of her being, the invisible ocean of archetypal energy that flows through her. When she softens her voice mid-sentence, when her eyes drift into the distance as though she's remembering something unspeakable, she is no longer performing, she is embodying. The lover archetype moves through her in waves, carrying warmth, sensuality, and vulnerability that melt the masculine defenses without intention. Jung believed that the body is the shadow's most honest language, and through it, the truth of her desire speaks louder than any word could dare. The masculine perceives these gestures as chaos, beautiful, bewildering chaos that challenges his reason. A man who lives mostly in his mind cannot easily decipher the symbols of the feminine. To him, her unpredictability feels like danger, but underneath it is fascination. Her slow turning away in conversation, the rhythm of her breathing as she listens, the slight tilt of her chin that asserts quiet sovereignty, all of it feeds his unconscious hunger to experience something that cannot be controlled. She becomes an initiation into mystery. Her gestures carry the same energy as myth itself, the reminder that life is not meant to be solved, but surrendered to. Most women, however, are conditioned to restrain these instincts. Society teaches them to be polite, composed, likable, stripping away the raw, magnetic charge of their archetypal body language. Yet when a woman reclaims this lost language, her presence begins to speak to the masculine without words. The sage archetype flickers in her stillness, the huntress in her movement, the mother in her tenderness, the queen in her gaze. She is not many women, she is one woman with many faces, each gesture unlocking another layer of the masculine psyche. To the conscious man, she is art, to the unconscious man, she is chaos, and to both, she is unforgettable. But these gestures cannot be imitated. They are not tricks. They are not about power over another, they are about power within the self. The true feminine archetype does not act from scarcity. She acts from wholeness. When she touches her own wrist absent-mindedly while speaking, it is not to seduce but to stay connected to her body, to remind herself that she is here, alive, embodied. And in that simple act of self-presence, she draws him into her orbit, because he can feel what she feels, reality, unmasked. Jung wrote that the feminine principle redeems through connection, and every authentic gesture she makes becomes a bridge between the physical and the symbolic, between body and soul. To the man who is awake, these gestures feel like homecoming. He does not crave them because they flatter him, but because they awaken something in him long forgotten. Her gestures remind him of his anima, the inner feminine that he has repressed in order to survive in a world of reason and conquest. When she moves with unself-conscious grace, he glimpses his own capacity for tenderness. When she allows silence to linger, he feels the echo of his own soul's longing for stillness. Her gestures heal not through intention, but through resonance. They say, without words, you can rest here. You can remember who you are. And yet, for the woman who knows this power, there is danger, the temptation to use it as weapon instead of mirror. To perform rather than embody. But the moment she turns it into performance, the energy collapses. The sacred becomes mechanical. Real archetypal magnetism cannot be faked, it must rise from within, from a self that has met her own darkness and made peace with it. Her gestures are forbidden precisely because they are true, and truth, in its rawest form, terrifies those who live behind masks. In the dim light of evening, when conversation fades into silence and only the rhythm of breath remains, her gestures begin to tell stories that words could never hold. A strand of hair brushed behind her ear, the stillness of her shoulders as she listens, these are not small things. They are archetypal expressions, fragments of an ancient language that speaks directly to the collective unconscious. Jung believed that all humans are born with this hidden memory, this coded inheritance of the soul. When a woman allows herself to move from that place, her every motion becomes a vessel for that memory. She becomes not merely an individual, but an embodiment of timeless femininity. The forbidden power of these gestures lies in their authenticity. They expose what the ego works so hard to hide. The ego wants perfection, the archetype seeks truth. So, when her eyes soften in vulnerability or her laughter trembles on the edge of pain, the mask slips, and the shadow steps forward. And the shadow, in its unfiltered honesty, is intoxicating. A man might not know why he can't look away when she allows herself to be fully human, flawed, radiant, alive, but on a deeper level, his unconscious recognizes the mirror. Her authenticity gives him permission to feel again, to inhabit his own depths, to surrender the armor he's carried for years. There is a particular magnetism in contradiction, in the woman who can hold softness and ferocity in the same breath. When she meets his gaze with quiet strength, the queen archetype emerges, unbending, self-possessed, yet filled with grace. When her movements grow slower, almost meditative, the mystic reveals herself, timeless, unattainable, drawing him not to conquest but contemplation. Her forbidden gestures do not demand attention, they invite devotion. She does not chase him into desire, she draws him into stillness, where his craving transforms into reverence. But beneath this beauty lies discipline. The feminine archetype that evokes craving does not arise from chaos alone, it comes from the integration of chaos and order. She has touched her pain, walked through her shame, looked into the mirror of her shadow and refused to turn away. That inner work refines her energy until her gestures vibrate with truth. Every motion carries history, the moments she survived, the emotions she transmuted, the love she reclaimed for herself. A man may see only the graceful curve of her hand, but energetically, he feels the entire story of her becoming. This is the essence of individuation, when body and psyche become one, when gesture and spirit are indistinguishable. Her magnetism does not scream, it whispers. And yet, it echoes for days in his mind. After she leaves, he replays the tilt of her head, the quiet pause before she spoke, the way her energy lingered like incense in the air. These are not physical addictions, they are symbolic. Her gestures remind him of what he's lost, connection, tenderness, awe. The modern world numbs the masculine spirit with noise and performance, but she reawakens it with presence. Her gestures are his mirror, reflecting back to him the soul he abandoned in the name of strength. And you, if you have ever been told to tone it down, to hide your emotion, to move smaller, understand this, your gestures were never too much. They were sacred expressions of the divine feminine seeking to be seen. The world fears what it cannot control, and the unfiltered woman cannot be controlled. Her gestures belong to no script, no approval. They are her prayer, her rebellion, her art. Every subtle movement is a reminder that she was not made to blend in, but to awaken. When she walks away, it is not her beauty he remembers, it is her energy. The space she left behind vibrates with meaning. There comes a moment when a woman's gestures cease to belong to the external world. They no longer reach outward for validation or longing, they begin to spiral inward, toward sovereignty. This is the transformation Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, of reclaiming the lost pieces of the self that were once exiled to please or survive. In this phase, her gestures change texture. What once sought recognition now emanates quiet authority. Her hand no longer trembles when she reaches for what she desires. Her shoulders no longer tense in anticipation of rejection. Every motion becomes deliberate, rooted, unshaken, not because she has learned control, but because she has remembered truth. He feels the difference instantly. The woman who has integrated her shadows no longer triggers his insecurity, she mirrors it. In her presence, he senses not seduction but sovereignty. The same gestures that once inflamed his craving now compel his respect. When she tilts her chin upward, when her eyes linger without flattery, she is no longer seeking his attention, she is witnessing his essence. Her gestures shift from enchantment to invocation, she invites the masculine to meet her in consciousness, not instinct. And if he cannot rise to that frequency, he feels the ache of his own unfulfilled potential. The feminine no longer bends to be chosen, she stands to choose. The most forbidden gesture of all is detachment, not the coldness of indifference, but the serenity of self-possession. The woman who knows her worth no longer performs the dance of approval. When she laughs, it is for herself. When she walks away, it is not punishment, it is alignment. In that stillness, her energy becomes magnetic in a different way. The lover and the queen merge, the sensual becomes sacred. Her gestures no longer whisper, "See me," but "I see." She becomes the mirror of consciousness itself, ungraspable, yet unforgettable. The masculine, confronted with this level of feminine integration, must decide whether to evolve or retreat. For the uninitiated man, her gestures feel like riddles, like doors that refuse to open. But for the man who has met his own shadow, she is the invitation he has been waiting for, the embodiment of the anima he has chased in dreams. He no longer seeks to possess her, he seeks to understand her. And in doing so, he begins to understand himself. This is the alchemy of attraction transformed into awakening, two energies meeting not to complete, but to reflect wholeness. Every forbidden gesture she has ever made, the lingering touch, the silent gaze, the poised stillness, was never about manipulation. It was communication. Each motion said what words could not, "I have been fragmented, but I am whole." This truth is why her presence lingers long after her departure. Men may forget faces, but they never forget energy that healed them, even briefly. Her gestures become mythology in their memory, moments where the sacred feminine reminded them of the divine balance they lost in their striving. And yet, she does not linger in their memory for validation. She moves on, not as a performance, but as a prayer to herself. Her gestures now serve no one but the truth that lives within her. She is no longer the woman waiting to be desired, she is the woman who understands that desire itself is her creation. Her every movement is a statement of inner peace, every silence a boundary of power. She becomes untouchable not because she is distant, but because she is whole. The paradox is complete, the more she embodies herself, the more the world aches to follow. Yet she needs no followers. Her gestures are her freedom, her shadow her crown, her stillness her throne. She does not chase what is fleeting, for she has become what is eternal. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.